TD Ryan Unleashed is brought to you by Scott Zyman, your State Farm Insurance agent. Scott can help you save money bundling your home and auto insurance. Call 815-748-3101 or stop by at 2587 Sycamore Road, Suite D in DeKalb. Like a good neighbor, Scott Zyman and State Farm are there. Pizza Villa, pizza, pasta, sandwiches, and more at 824 West Lincoln Highway in DeKalb. For delivery or pickup, call 815-758-8116 or go to pizzavilla.com. My Insurance Guys in Sycamore, family owned, local, reliable. My Insurance Guys cover Medicare to auto and everything in between. Call us in Sycamore at 815-899-0950. My Insurance Guy, business, auto, home, life, and health at myinsuranceguy.com. And Eldercare Services of DeKalb County, safe, secure, and supported, helping you stay at home where you want to be. Call 815-758-6550 or stop in at 1701 East Lincoln Highway in DeKalb or on the web at ecsdekalb.org. And welcome into TD Ryan Unleashed podcast number 22. A big thanks to my nephew Ethan Davis for getting this on the air and all our wonderful sponsors as well. Today we're talking to a DeKalb School District 428 bilingual teacher and Cortland mother of three who seeks to unseat three-term Sycamore Republican from the State House in District number 70, Veronica Garcia Martinez. She's a community organizer in her fifth year of teaching at DeKalb. Announced her candidacy for state representative on social media last week. And joining us here on the podcast, thank you so much, Veronica, for taking time to talk to us.
No worries. I appreciate you having me on. It's definitely important to get my voice heard, and this is a great opportunity for me.
Now, you're going to be a veteran with this, but tell us why you ran. I see a quote here in the Daily Chronicle. You say, I'm running. This is when you were running, I believe, for the county position. I'm running because I know what it's like to feel invisible. First-generation Mexican-American said in TikTok campaign, I've seen how families like mine work hard every single day and still struggle to be heard, to be seen, and be respected. Tell us about that, and tell us about when you grew up in Chicago. Tell us about that.
I did. I grew up in Pilsen, and then after I went to high school in Aurora, and then out here in DeKalb for college. It's very true. The immigrant community is very much hidden. You know they're there because they're doing the service jobs. You see them in the fields, and occasionally you'll see them in the professional world. But even if there's so many of us in the professional world, but we're often overlooked. It's like you're silenced, be quiet, stay in the corner, or don't say anything because you don't want to bring that spotlight onto your family. And I've kind of broken that mold, but I feel that that's because I've been given the opportunity to use my privilege, the fact that I was born here, that I'm lighter skinned, that I'm educated. All of that is a privilege that I have, and I have to use it. And I choose to use it to represent my community that doesn't have that same privilege, that doesn't have that same liberty to speak out.
And tell us about what it was like growing up in Chicago. You know, I remember when I was a kid, I heard, I always thought Chicago was a big melting pot. We have so many different nationalities and communities represented. But then somebody pointed out everything is sectioned up. There's a Polish section. Everything is, divided up, yes, even though we're supposed to be.
It's not, there's no such thing as a melting pot. It's a tossed salad.
I love the tossed salad, yes. Because we retain we retain everything, but yet we're all together.
We're all together. And, I loved growing up in the city. I grew up in Pilsen, but my grandmother lived in a Ukrainian village. So I was there for about a year or two, but then that was where we hung out. She owned a pool hall out on Ashland and Augusta. So the Russian mob, how that influenced there. So it's cool history. But Chicago has this ability to make you feel like you're small, but also so big. You can be big in your community, but you're so small to the rest of the city. And you never stop learning there. You never stop seeing new things, and I love it. Now, would I live there again? Probably not. As a mom, it was too much. I don't know how my mom raised us there, but for me, it was too much. I tried with my little ones. I'm like, no, we're going to go back. So we came back here, and I just fell in love with the culture of DeKalb. I fell in love with the fact that we have so many different ethnic groups and so much diversity here. And that it was still close enough for me to take my children back to where I came from.
That's great. I want to ask you about your kids because my father died when I was young, and she had to raise 4 teenage boys. And we apologize. We used to apologize every time we saw Mom for our time during when we were teenagers. But that's wonderful. You're raising the boys. I want to ask you about that later on. But let's talk about your District 70 itself. Now, we've had Jeff Keicher on the show a couple times, and we talked about the gerrymandered map. And, of course, I don't know if you see the irony of Governor Pritzker protecting the folks from Texas about the gerrymandered map, and yet, according to State Representative Keicher, we have one of the worst gerrymandered maps in the entire country. But what are your thoughts about that? Are you happy with the way your district, if you do win in the 7th district, is laid out, or would you like to see that change?
I agree with him completely. I agree on that, the fact that the state is really divided quite unfairly, quite unequally. And I would hope that we are living in a different time, and I don't know who said it, that, nowadays with technology, we're looking at voter data, looking at demographics, there has to be a way for it to be done correctly, for it to be done equally to give us equal representation. I don't know where that would come from, but I'm pretty sure we have geniuses around the country that can figure it out. So, but I do see the irony in, the Texas politicians coming here, and I'm like, hey, let them come here, because we don't want that cycle that has already happened here to repeat itself elsewhere.
Okay.
So I do agree with that standpoint. And when I look at my district, it is very unequal and very weird, and it's like a long snake in the middle of nothing almost. But luckily, the communities that lie within District 70 are absolutely amazing communities, and I look forward to getting to know more and making my presence known in those areas.
Well, we hope this podcast helped do that too, because we're excited that you're always exciting when somebody's running. And why run now in this negative climate that we have? Everything is so negative, especially when you talk about the social media. People don't hold back at all when it comes to going after, especially people that are running for office.
Yeah, well, this is the most important time for me to run, because being that I'm an educator, that's the problem with social media. You get one side. We really need two sides. We need to see both perspectives, and no one is giving both perspectives. Not even Representative Keicher. He does an amazing job to give his loyal followers the perspective that they want to hear, but in reality, we need to hear both sides. And when it comes to the immigrant community, the undocumented community, we're not getting the full picture. So my goal is to educate the community and then let them decide. Am I the best for you, or is Jeff the best for you? And I would hope that the information that I give helps sway more people toward my side.
Now, one of your quotes in the article I was reading here that said you decided to run because you saw numerous arguments in the community at protests and online. What kind of arguments are you talking about there?
Well, number one, we have a huge thing that immigrants are a big charge on the state, and we don't want them here. They're all criminals. And I'm like, where do you see that from? I don't see those criminals in my community. I've seen people taken from my community that have been here 30, 40 years, that have paid their taxes, have never even had a traffic infraction, yet we're hearing that 70% of them are criminals. With misinformation. Not only that, with this whole thing with the Department of Ed being shut down, the state handles education. Okay, but the Department of Ed secured certain programs and opportunities for children with disabilities and bilingual students, and I want to make sure we keep those, because those children are equally as important as everybody else.
Now, you had an interesting theory. We're talking to Veronica Garcia Martinez, who's running for the 70th state representative position. You say here, you're pointing out truancy as an example. You say she'd like to see walking school buses to pick up students in the neighborhood. The sense of unity we lost decades ago. That sounds like a neat concept. Where'd you get that from?
Well, my ex-husband and I, we were walking to school one day, Little John. We were taking the kids there.
I live right by Little John.
Yeah,
I'm on 10th Street.
That's my school. I'm right over there. And the mom had fallen on ice on the way to school. The kids couldn't get her up. We lifted her up, and I walked her home, and my ex-husband walked the kids back to school, and he let them know, hey, let the teacher know, Papi, that we call him Papi Tines, our last name is Martinez, we'll be picking up the kids and taking them home. And it just became a thing. We're like, hey, you know what? It's too dangerous for you to be walking on the ice. I will pick up the kids and walk them, and my wife will pick them up and take them home. And it just became a community thing. So every day we would pick up the kids and walk them to school. This mom didn't have to worry about hurting herself. She had younger kids at home. And I'm like, why don't we do that now? Right now, if it was too cold or too icy, she may have been resistant to walk her kids. Hey, you're staying home today.
Right.
But here we have my ex, who is a great father, and he would happily walk any kid to school. He just loves kids. So if he has that ability to do so, why not? And we can continue to do that. That's a big thing. Where with the current climate, think of immigration, a lot of people are afraid to leave the home, but their kids are citizens, but they have to walk them. Mm-hmm. They don't just want to let them go, or they have to drive them. And the same thing, this is not just for undocumented people. We're talking about new moms. If you have a newborn at home and you got to get your second grader to school, that's big.
Right.
You got to bundle them up, get them over there. If you have a car, warm up the car or walk them. With walking school bus, we are looking at a zero-cost way for the community to engage with each other, to help each other, and get our kids to school. Not only get them there, but get them there on time. It's an alternative. Now, when we talk about...
Now, I have to play the devil's advocate, but now what about the insurance? Because right away, that's what people think about, because you're driving children in a vehicle, so.
This is all, what is that? There was like a policy, the Good Samaritan thing, you know? This is a neighbor helping a neighbor. You know, the ideal would be that we wouldn't be really transporting children by vehicle. Children would be walking to school.
Okay.
Or being walked to a school bus. These are short distances.
Okay.
That we're looking at. So I wouldn't, you know, the car component, it's Good Samaritan. If you're going to pick up my friend's kid, we do it all the time for each other's families. I want us to go back to think, I'm an 80s baby. Mm-hmm. So if we go back to the 1980s, you knew everybody in your neighborhood. And if you did something wrong, they were calling your mama. And you were in trouble, you know? But you could rely that if my kid's out playing or walking home from school and I can't be there, the neighbor mom's going to handle it. Or the neighbor dad's going to get them there. Back here in the early 2000s, dads and moms would alternate who would take the kids trick-or-treating. You know, I remember it's like dad, so they'd have their beers or their cups, you know, while trick-or-treating with their kids. Why don't we bring that sense of community back? If you live in the Pleasant Street neighborhood back in, 2010, kids would play on the street, ride their bikes.
Well, my wife had a place on 10th Street right there by Little John School, and they used to have block parties. They used to shut the block down, and everybody in the neighborhood would come and have a party.
And we don't see that anymore.
No, we're trying to bring that back.
Yeah, and I think walking school bus is a great way to start. Let's get to know our neighbors. And if you're a person who's at home and you're retired or you don't work till later, maybe offer yourself up to that local. We're hoping the PTAs would take this on and you know, team up. Like, you know, we have a lot of seniors that would love to, you know, be like mystery readers. Why not be a walker, you know? And if they have to be screened by the schools, maybe we could reach out to the different districts and be like, can we screen walkers to do this? But ideally, we would be doing this like a neighbor helping a neighbor.
Okay.
Or a parent helping a parent. There's kinks to be worked out. It'd be a new program. We're going to see what school will take, you know, the bite at it, but there's nothing that says that a neighbor can't help a neighbor.
No, I love that too. You know, I grew up in Lincolnwood, and we went to school in Sauganash, so I had to take a bus, and I was always so jealous of kids that lived near the school because they got to walk back and forth to school, and they would play games after the school was over. But what a treat to live by Little John and watch the kids and their parents walk to and from school.
And then that's it. You just notify the school, hey, so-and-so will be walking my child home. And they know that. You know, it doesn't put any responsibility on the school. It doesn't really put any responsibility on a school bus or anything like that because it's walking home. It's just making sure kids are getting to and from so that that parent who is unable to take them has someone else taking on that role. And then we're getting kids there. That was a big issue.
Yeah, that's the important thing, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to save money for the state. We're going to save money for the district by ensuring that students are going and getting a proper education, and that's solving a truancy issue.
All right, well, that's not such a wild idea after all.
No, not so bad.
Now, you ran for county board. You ran for County Board District 5 back in 2004. Mm-hmm. You lost by 264 votes. 4,000 people, a little over 4,000 people voted. Tell us, why did you run in that campaign, and what was that like? Was that your first campaign? What was that like?
That was my first campaign. I was approached by Anna from the Guns, and she's like, do you want to run? And I'm like, well, I guess she had heard about me. And I'm like, why not? You know, and at that time, there was a lot of issues going on with, again, always immigration, always people feeling like there was a lot of hate things going on. People with their Trump flags, but not just a regular Trump flag. I have no problem with the Trump flag, but when you're using derogatory language and you're using it toward certain minority groups, then it becomes a problem for me. And I live next to where there's some trailer homes in Cortland, and a lot of these community members were being
harassed.
Yeah, harassed and threatened, and I'm like, we can't have that. At that same time, the county was talking about getting rid of sanctuary city status. And I went and spoke, like, why? What does it harm us to be a sanctuary city? We're protecting our own citizens, people that pay in to our tax base, that are part of our community, to go to our schools. And I didn't feel like the person that was representing our area was truthfully representing our area. I feel like a lot of times politicians only listen to one side, and I wanted to be the one that heard both sides. And in Cortland, that's what was lacking. And I think where I went wrong in that election is I didn't really know my map. So, you know, I went out and talked to people, but I didn't know there was a piece of Sycamore. So I never went there. I don't really knew who I was, you know? So I I would hope that now I have a little bit more knowledge and a little bit more of a backing to really get my voice out there. And again, if I win, fantastic. And if I don't, I hope that I at least educate and impact minds to think a little bit differently.
Now, your opponent has since stepped down, some legal controversies there. Do you feel that you should have been next then in line, or who has that seat now? Do you know, or
I believe it's vacant.
is it up to the party then
It's up to the board, I believe,
Okay.
to assign someone. She's my neighbor. I don't know the situation. I've read what everybody.
So they haven't approached you to take the seat?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Yeah, not at all. But I would, I hope they put someone that can, represent Cortland well in our area. Not just Cortland, but we have other outlying little parts of DeKalb and stuff like that. But we do need equal representation, period, at all levels of government. And I think Cortland really needs a good voice.
Now, I found it very interesting when you said a little while ago that you said that the Dems called you and asked you to run for office. And I see here that the Republicans won 9 out of 10 contested races for county board. I think many of us were wondering about county board, whether it's Democrats or Republicans or not, but I got to say there is. Is that important, and why is that important, do you feel?
I think it just depends on where you lie. What we're seeing right now is people are leaning very left or very right.
Yes, there's no middle ground.
And there's no middle, but I am very much a middle person. But I think it's because of my background. I've worked in social work, I've worked in education, and you have to be willing to hear both sides. And a lot of people right now in certain positions are not willing to listen to each other. How can we function at any level of government if you cannot listen to your community and the people that are serving with you? We have to start changing that mentality.
Now, you touched on this, and I don't want to give you a lot of time with this because you already touched on it, but one of the things you talk about is protecting education funding, programs that help bilingual learners and students with disabilities so they don't disappear from federal dollars. And that's a scary prospect, isn't that? That money's going away.
It is. And I think that people don't understand the power behind bilingual education or dual language education. You have to look at the global market, right? 60% of the world, and that's conservative, 60% of the world is bilingual or multilingual. The US, not even 24%. How do we compete at the global level? Yes, we're a powerhouse, right? The US is the most powerful, but for how long?
Well, let me tell you, I wanted to bring this up because my grandkids were very unique. They go to school out in Virginia, and they went to an all-German school.
Yeah.
When they were, I think she was 7 and he was 5. No, didn't speak any German at all. When I got immersed in the German, and they've been able to learn German, and they've also taken French and Spanish as well since they've been there. But the fact is, they were able to be immersed in German and learn German, and were able to convey and learn in German. What about the people that say, why can't these kids, Hispanic kids, learn in English? And
well, they are. They are. They.
So why have the bilingual teaching it? Why?
Because studies have proven that if you learn your language and you master your language, your native language, you can then master other languages. And that's what we're seeing. These students, these bilingual students, and now dual language students are outperforming all the other students in our district by 8th grade. Like, we have to look at the numbers. These programs are fairly new. They've only been around 6 years. We're in 5th grade now. And these kids that were in bilingual before that are outperforming. We're having kids graduate in high school with the seal of biliteracy. They are mastering 2 languages: reading, writing, comprehension, speaking. It's fantastic. The same thing, I'm sure, with, you said your grandchildren, right? They master German, they master English, and probably better than most of us. And then now that they speak 2, they're able to master other languages. It's a multicultural world. And the U.S. has to be ready.
Well, you talk about the world now. Because they go to this German school, when they graduate high school, they're able to go to school in Europe for free.
Yes.
And my granddaughter's going to go to school in England for free to become a doctor. So,
and imagine that. She'll be debt-free here.
Yes.
She will have a global education that competes with our education system and be able to come back if she chooses to contribute to our society because she learned a second language.
Very good. Well, tremendous answer there. We're talking to Veronica Garcia Martinez, running for the 7th seat there. The primary is coming up in March. Now, the biggest issue, she said, the major issue facing the country is racial tension between Latinos and the community. You pointed out that 14% of the population there is Latino. And in Cortland, you say you have a large Latino population. Now, you kind of touched on that, too, that they were feeling that discrimination. So you feel you can be the voice. It's important that you be the voice.
I feel that I can be the voice. I think many people are scared to be the voice. I think people are afraid to speak out because there's a lot of a lot of hate. You see the signs, report undocumented immigrants to ICE, and you got the phone numbers, they're on social media, they're in stores, they get put on cars. And people that want to have the voice, a lot of our DACA recipients, a lot of our people on TPS, temporary protective status, or people that are now residents aren't speaking because it can be taken from them. You're not going to take my citizenship. I was born here. This is my country. I'm lucky that my culture is Mexican American. I'm not just Mexican. I'm not just American. I fly right there in the middle. I'm true for both. And I have the ability to speak out. And I feel that I've earned the trust from the Latino community to be able to represent them.
You know, I recently I'm not comparing anybody to Hitler at all, and I'm neutral. I'm like Switzerland here. Mm-hmm. But what was reading about how Hitler came to power in the 30s, and then what was happening in Paris, France at the time when they knew that Hitler was coming, and how people reacted to that. And a lot of people, like you said, just kind of didn't say anything, kind of went along with the masses, and then look what happened. And unfortunately, many of us are seeing that happening here in America, where people, not only is it happening, but then people are afraid to speak out for fear of what might happen to them.
Yep, and it is happening. And there's fear on both sides. You know, I watch these interviews, these like video sessions of people saying we're worried about our white community being eliminated, being erased. And then we have the Mexican community, like, you know, that's divided into also. We have the one that, hey, we don't want to become too American. You know, mm-hmm. We don't, but then, or you're too Mexican. Like, where's that fine line? This is the United States. We're supposed to blend. We're supposed to melt, right? Mm-hmm. But you can't melt when you have hate or fear of being eliminated or hate because of who you are and what you represent. But we have to go back in history and look at what has already happened because we're repeating it. And we shouldn't be. That's why history exists, right? So we do not repeat it. But it's like fashion trends. So nasty fashion comes back too, you know, but at the end of it...
Don't tell me about the bell bottoms I wore in the 70s.
They're going to come back. But that's the thing is that there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of misinformation out there. And I can understand both sides, but hate is hate. And we can't let hate win. And it's winning right now. And that's what's scary. And we really have to listen and see what is happening. When you talk about these detention centers and the conditions of what they're being held, we have laws for a reason. And those laws, why is it okay to violate the laws for someone who wasn't born here? But you would never violate that for the worst of the worst criminals that are U.S. citizens. Mm-hmm. You know,
very good.
No sense.
Now, you went to NIU. I wish I had more time to ask you about that. But how did you feel on campus in terms of racial equality and everything on campus? Has it gotten better or worse? And what's going to happen in Northern, you feel, as a state representative as we see more and more students not going to NIU?
Well, we have so many foreign students. We have amazing programs at NIU, and NIU has a big magnet for them. I was part of FLIRP, the Foreign Language Residency Program.
FLIRP, okay.
Yeah, and I got to live with people from all over the world, and it was such an incredible cultural experience, educational experience. I lived with people from Japan, from Russia, from Germany, from Spain, from Mexico, and I was able to embrace who I was. Because, you know, I grew up in a very Mexican community, and then I went to high school in a very American community. I was kind of torn of who I was, and I learned in college who I truly was, and that it was okay to be American, it was okay to be Mexican, and to embrace everybody else. But I wish everybody else would have that same mentality. But NIU, I fear for NIU. I love NIU. I got my bachelor's there. I got my master's there. I learned so much about the world from my professors there that were from all over the world. And now, if we're not going to let those people come here and study here, but what's going to happen? It's going to be a reversal, like your granddaughter. Now people are going to go study in those countries. Mm-hmm. Well, that's not cool. Like, we want our people to study here because typically wherever you study, that's where you work. You know?
Right, yeah.
So we want those educated people here. Well, at least I do.
Well, you heard the old adage here with the old Indian folklore that if you dip your toe in the Kishwaukee River, you come back. And another one I read, it says 70% of Americans live within 100 miles of where they were born. Now, I was born in Lincolnwood, so I'm within 100 miles. You were born where in Chicago? So you were right there on the...
Right there, right on it.
Right on it.
I can't see myself living. My brother moved away to Mississippi, and I'm like, how? To me, this is my world. I'm invested in this world. And if I leave, it will be when I retire. And I would love to live in Mexico when I retire, but that's more for a cultural experience. I want to learn that culture. I know the United States, my grandmother had us travel the whole U.S. because she believed the only way to know history is to experience it.
Oh, good for her.
And she took us everywhere as kids, and we learned so much. But as an adult, as a retired adult, I would eventually like to learn that more indigenous culture that Mexico is a part of, that embraces.
Very good. Now, a lot of politicians say, that people are upset with them because they don't know how to run a business and they never ran a business. You did. You launched Tina's Tacos back in 2013. I guess you recently sold this. Tell us about your time and how difficult that was to get that established. Because we all know Tina's Tacos now, but we didn't back then.
Yeah, so we sold more so for personal reasons. We were exhausted. We were tired. But it was a very successful business for us. For us, it was. We kept it small. We were often asked to do franchise it and have,
Oh, really? Okay.
Bigger. Yes, but because the food was good. It was good. But it was just too much for us at that time. I was in a master's program and, with our separation and everything, it just wasn't feasible. But it was not easy for us. And I can tell you that for the Latino community, it's still not easy. Getting a hold of health department, getting the rules and, getting your permits and you have to get educated. You have to get, your permits from the state and then you have the taxes and who you go to. It was so much. Luckily, I have OCD, so I retain a lot. So I learned a lot, but it is a huge barrier for so many wanting to go down that path. And we helped many of the current food trucks, get started and kick off. And I hope to see more. But that's the thing. They say immigrants start small businesses. We definitely did that. Because my ex-husband, he became a citizen through me. But it was not an easy process. And having a business let us show the DeKalb County community who we were. Mm-hmm. And, if you ate in our home, that's what our food was like in the restaurant. So I do know what it's like to run a business, have employees, and do all of that good stuff. It is not easy, and it definitely takes a thick skin.
My wife and I watch a lot of Shark Tank, and a lot of times you see the food truck people where they try to go in and have a brick establishment, and a lot going on there too. That's a huge leap, isn't it, to do that?
It is, and I think that was where kind of our downfall was. Like, we did have our, the brick and mortar, but it was too much. We were just so good at the food truck, and had we just stayed the food truck, maybe we would have lasted longer and not been so tired. But then when you split yourself in two and you're a mom and pop, it's hard. So, but eventually we'll do a comeback when the kids are a little older and they want to take it on. We'll do a comeback, but for now, we're just taking a break.
Well, the community saw how hard you worked because you were at every event. Every event I went to, I saw Tina's Taco truck there.
We loved it, and people loved the food. We would sell out all the time.
Now, tell us, you also worked for the Epilepsy Foundation. What was that like? Again, a wonderful thing to balance your work experience to work for a nonprofit like that.
Yes, I did. I worked for the Epilepsy Foundation out of Rockford, but I had my office here in DeKalb. I was a director for 10 years. Then they got shut down. They lost state funding, so I'm really aware of how state funding and budgeting goes because of the nonprofit world. We were able to get that funding back, and I was one of the founders of Epilepsy Advocacy Network. And I truly loved it, but again, when you do it so much and working with politicians, and it was like, you're begging for money, look at how important the program is, epilepsy education and schools. It was too much for me. And then when we lost the funding, I got into teaching. And I'm like, wait, I actually like this. This is my life now. So I walked away from epilepsy, but I still embrace it. I still refer people to them, and I help wherever I can in that world, but just no longer as an income.
Yeah, I talked to a lot of nonprofits, and I understand grant writing is an art form in itself, and a major pain in the right one to get that. So I can imagine years of writing grants that would get old. Well, let's talk about solar power. You have an interesting thought on solar power. Here, this is quoting you. Solar panels are great, but does it mean that I want one of my cornfields? No. Well, why aren't we putting them on parking garages on top of big buildings? I don't know why we don't do that more.
Yeah.
This has to be a creative solution to these problems. So talk about that, because many of us here in DeKalb County don't want to see that farmland get covered with solar panels, but yet we understand the importance of solar energy. Tell us about it, because I love the idea. I don't want every building in town should have the panels.
So I was told I have to think more, protect the earth. And I'm like, what is the issue? Because there's certain issues I don't know a lot about, and I don't know a lot about a lot of these different projects, but I drive down toward Geneva and I see all these solar panels going into Cayman, and I'm like, what the heck? Like, where's the corn? Like, I love the change of seasons here. I don't want to see solar panels in my fields. Like, I understand the benefit. I understand the energy, the money, all that stuff. But I'm like, we have all these giant buildings and parking garages. Why not put them up on the top of the buildings? Why not put them on the sides of the buildings where it's not being taken up? I mean, I don't think they're that ugly to put on a building. I don't like them in my corn. Why? But here's the thing. We live in a new era. Why aren't we having open discussions for alternatives to doing these things? People are like, I don't want them in the corn, so I just don't want them.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't want them in the corn either. But why not put them on these parking garages that are half empty all over the place? There has to be alternatives. We have to start thinking outside of the box.
I like that. So you also the Director of Social Services with Active Grace since August of 2022. Tell us, what is Active Grace?
So Active Grace is a great nonprofit. It was the Johnson family. I haven't really worked too much with them lately. I'm always there to support.
Well, it's not like you're busy. Come on.
Well, I know. That's the thing. They're an amazing small nonprofit, just doing social support groups, talking to other families that are going through these issues with epilepsy and the challenges. And oftentimes we have this group, this teenage group that, they have this medical disorder that is pretty much taking over their life. They feel alone. They feel lost. They feel like they can't go to birthday parties. They can't do slumber parties. They can't drive. Active Grace gives them alternatives. Hey, you can't drive. That means you don't have a car note, but we have Uber. What's going to be cheaper? You know what I'm saying? Things like that. Let's think differently. Let's go. And Grace Johnson is in it again, launching these support groups again. It's just such a great organization. And to me, I just love it because it's grassroots, it's simple, it's here in the community, and they just want to hear each other out and give somebody a space to express themselves, and that's what they do.
And how do we find out? Just go Active Grace online?
Active Grace on Facebook, check them out. And they always have, I know they got some great funding recently, and I saw that Gracie Johnson, it was named after her. She just launched some more support groups, and I hope they start to get bigger as they go along. Again, time for me is limited, and I haven't been able to contribute so much, but I'm always there to support them. They're just amazing people.
That's great. Now, you went to, and we talked about that, and you studied sociology. Now, I've always been fascinated by sociology, especially when I watch the group protest, and when you watch, I watched a special on ESPN about, I think, the Vancouver Canucks that were supposed to win the seventh game of the hockey championship, and then everybody in the town rioted, and then the people that rioted, they were called out on social media, and then they were getting called out in. But tell us about that. And you see this when you see these protest groups locally here. Do people act differently in groups, and are they more bold? Are they emboldened by the groups?
I don't want to use the word bold. I think they are empowered, and they're getting hope from those groups. If you look at the protests that get out of hand, it's not usually the community that's protesting causing the ruckus. It's usually someone outside coming in and taking that opportunity to be a mess, as I like to say.
And we should point that out. That's been documented a lot, where it finds out the people that started it, they're not even from the area.
Exactly. Right? We saw things in LA where somebody with the Mexican flag was setting a car on fire. Well, that person wasn't even Latino. We had a famous TikToker went up to him, like, started talking Spanish. And like, do you not speak Spanish? Like, that's what you're fighting for, right? He's like, no, and it was a white guy. And I'm like, but we saw the same thing with George Floyd. In Aurora, there was cars set on fire, businesses being looted. None of them were black lighting the cars on fire. None of them that were looting were black. Again, who is coming in to cause the mess, to incite the violence? It's not the people protesting. People that are protesting want to be heard. They want to be seen. And then they feel empowered and are given hope by the community that surrounds them in those areas. I've spoken at many of them. And when I go, I'm like, yes, I know this may not lead anywhere, but I now feel heard. I feel seen by these people, and these people are my allies. These people are my community.
Oh, very well put. Now, when I was doing the research for this, I came across a certificate of recognition to present to Veronica Garcia Martinez in recognition of her service to the city of DeKalb and DeKalb Public Library from July 1st, 2015 to June 30th, 2017. Tell us about your time here at the library. Again, we are blessed to have this sound studio here. But there's people talking about banning books and books that should or shouldn't be read. And again, I was reading, for about Germany in the 30s when they started burning books. It's a scary, scary thing. And tell us about your time here at the library.
So I was asked to join. I was part of Conexión Comunidad. I was on the board there. And one of the other ladies on the board worked here, and she's like, would you like to be a part of this board? And I'm like, why not? I love the library. And at that time, we were in the transition of the new construction here. So I served during that construction and the end of it when we did the ribbon
With Deke Hoover.
Yeah,
Right.
yes, exactly. And I had moved to Cortland, right? That's why I left. Otherwise, I would have stayed if they let me. I love the library because it is a safe place for people. It is a safe place for you to learn, to expand your knowledge, and it honestly is a place for people that have nowhere else to go to be. We have teenagers running around causing a mess if a library is closed. They can come here, they can use media, they can learn sound equipment, they can meet with their friends, and the teen room is the coolest. I fell in love with the idea of the library, the new way that this library was formed. And we have great libraries in all communities. Cortland's is like the size of this room, but it's amazing. People love it. They just love to go to the Cortland Library. We should have it. And the idea of banning books, what are you banning? You're banning someone's truth. If you can't handle someone's truth, look away and do your own thing. That's my that's how I see it.
Okay.
I'm not going to like everything that everybody else likes, but in no way does that make them wrong or terrible. I don't really like our current president, but I'm not going to sit here and hate him. Live your life. Be evil if you want. I'm still going to live mine, and I'm going to live my truth. Same thing if he doesn't, or people in his administration or people in other states don't want someone to read a Maya Angelou book because it's not their taste. Your problem. I love Maya Angelou. I'm going to read her all I want.
Very good. Now, I want to ask you to kind of wrap things up here, but I want to ask you about your family growing up here in this area as well. But tell us about that. If you had to pick two issues, then, why you're running for state representative in the 7th district, what would those two be? Immigration.
Immigration is number one. And I know people are like, you're shooting yourself in the foot by saying that.
I was going to say that because it's not in the forefront, per se, of people in the area.
Yeah, because they're saying it's a federal issue.
Right.
No, it's also a state issue. Because when I see certain comments and certain things being published on social media, and I'm going to use social media because that's our number one news source now, right? They're saying,
and podcasts,
well, podcasts are fantastic. That's how I get out there. Yeah. People are saying that the immigrants, and I'm going to use immigrants because I hate when they use the word illegal or undocumented. The immigrant community are such a charge on this state. They don't do anything. They mooch. Well, they're getting taken from their jobs. They pay taxes. They go to the stores. They pay the same taxes we do. It's not like I can go to Walmart and say, hey, yo, I'm undocumented. Don't charge me the tax. We have to be realistic. So it is also a state problem. And the fact that we don't recognize their contribution to our community is a problem for me. Because what would happen to the Illinois economy without the labor force of our undocumented labor force? 25% work in agriculture. What are our farmers who we rely on, who do amazing work for our community, going to do without their labor force? People aren't thinking about it.
That's a great point. All right. So, and then the other, obviously, education.
Education, yes. Teachers, students. We have teachers right now that...
Well, let me stop you right there because I'm going to ask you a tough question because we have a brand new school now just built here in DeKalb. So we're starting fresh. We have all state-of-the-art equipment now. So how do we gauge that? Do we go back to the old numbers where, reading, writing, arithmetic and measure those skills? Because there's no excuse now to not educate these young people.
Well, education isn't what it was back in the day. It has changed greatly. The new school, I don't know a lot of the financial components of it, but I can tell you this. As a teacher, thanks to the new school, my class size is smaller.
That's huge. I know.
It's big. I went from 27 students to, I think this year, 13 per session. I have.
Oh, wow.
So 13 max right now. 27 was hard. We didn't have space. We didn't have enough seats sometimes. We didn't have materials. Now that's not an excuse. Now the teachers can focus. They can educate. They can, differentiate their instruction to give to those students. That's less stress on me. That's less stress on the students. It should be less stress on our admin as well. So I hope that it really has a trickle-down effect. But I would also expect that if we're investing this much money, tax dollars, because Lord knows I pay a lot of taxes, that there's a lot of accountability then.
Yes.
There has to be a lot of accountability. So if we are giving the district this money out of our paychecks, show me what we're getting out of it. Show me that we have higher graduation rates, that we have students utilizing this curriculum, that they're actually going to school, walking the school bus, and things like that, and that our teachers are being treated well, and that our paraprofessionals are being treated well. And by that, I mean pay them what they deserve, and go back to the drawing board on this retirement, this tier 2 pension plans. Because I cannot imagine a 67-year-old getting down on the carpet with a kindergartner because you just changed the retirement whole pension issue.
Well, and that's an issue. That's another thing that you'll have to address is the pension issue.
It's a whole thing with it. We have people that are working in fields that, back in the day, you would work your 25 years, you were done, you can retire. If you started at 21, you started at 21. Now, you got to wait till you're 67 to get a full pension. And then you don't even qualify, for Social Security. Obviously, we don't pay into it, but
right.
I worked in the regular world. I paid out to Social Security my whole life. I just went into teaching. And I'm going to tell you the biggest issue is that we can't keep teachers anymore. Now they're going to go to another profession because that pension that they're going to get is not going to be worth it.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to go elsewhere, make that money, and then have a great retirement plan.
But we can do a whole show on where that pension money is going to come because we keep ignoring that problem.
Yeah, we have to stop it.
Well, let me ask you a quick question as an educator, because I watch this show, a Sunday morning show, and Steve Hartman does a little segment on that. That's a feel-good segment. But there was a gentleman who had gone through his whole life, never learned how to read. He was a World War II veteran, and his wife did all the reading for him and was able to fake it at work. And then she passed away, and he realized I had to learn how to read. So he was 76, never read a book in his life, and tried all these modern methods with these people. And one lady said, let's just try it with flashcards. He brought flashcards. And the flashcards worked. He picked up, started reading one end of it, and he read our first grade. He read George Washington's biography. He was so proud of his first book that he read. But any thoughts of going back to old school methods of teaching the kids?
So this is where I'm going to go back on my dual language. The traditional method doesn't work for everyone. We use flashcards. When we use other languages to help us learn, there's, when you learn Spanish, you learn with syllables. So you double them up and you're not learning letter for letter. And a lot of times too, children need to see the big picture and then work their way down to learn how to read. That's how you learn Spanish. That's how our culture is built. In English, you start letter, sound, right? And then you build up and you build up and then you get a big picture. We have to start learning that not everybody learns the same, and there has to be different ways to allow children to express their knowledge. I had a student who did not like to write because he couldn't write, but he could draw like nobody's business. So we went from drawings to labeling to forming sentences to writing paragraphs to writing essays, but we did it his way. We just have to have the time and the space to do it. And now, at least in our community with smaller class sizes, we're going to be able to give that to more students.
That's fantastic. That's great. And finally, tell us about your 3 boys, the teenage boys. Tell us about them. What are they up to, and what are their hopes and dreams?
So I got 3 kids, but one is a girl, and she's a whole hot mess, and I love her. She's crazy. I have a 17-year-old, Isaac. That's my oldest. He's fantastic. He loves cooking, and he is at the high school. And I love that he has a very eclectic brain. He likes, stocks and bonds and all that. I don't understand any of it. But he also loves, video games and all that mess. And he just loves to cook and destroy my kitchen. Then we have my daughter, watch out world. I'm warning the whole world right now. She is going to be a powerhouse. She is independent and fierce and just absolutely amazing.
Let me
okay.
Just stop this for 1 second. And it's looping for some reason. No, you're doing great. No, this is fantastic. I just wanted to make sure I get this. Okay, yeah, so you were telling us about the 3 kids, and just keep going from where you were.
Okay, so with Addison is my daughter. She's 15, and I'm just saying watch out to the whole world because she's a powerhouse. I don't even know what she's going to do in the future, but she's going to be something, okay? She's just fierce. She holds her, her heart on her sleeve, and she's amazing. And then I have my youngest, and Roy. I love Roy because Roy doesn't like to go to school, but he's brilliant. And he thinks that we should let him go out into the world so he can build his own house and learn to live on his own land. Yet he's just absolutely amazing. And if you could eat Swedish fish forever, that's all he would do. So I have 3 great kids. They are amazing. They drive me insane. But if you know me and you see me in the community, you'll see one with me. And they're not your typical teenagers. You know, teenagers usually lock you out of life, like,
Sure.
get out of my face. Mine are in my face. They are in my bed, like, Mom, hug me, hold me, love me. I'm like, God, go away, but I love them.
I know, you don't want that to go away.
I
know
know.
that. Well, it's very impressive to meet you. Veronica Garcia Martinez has been our guest. She's running for the primary now, and that'll be in March, right? March 17th, right?
Yes.
And we wish you the best of luck, and please promise that you'll come back and vote with us again.
Well, definitely. I will be back, and hopefully, you know, if you see me in the community and you want me to hear your side, tell me your side. I want to know. I don't want to shut anybody out, and I want to learn. I definitely want to be that voice. And I know everybody says that, but I feel that I truly can be that voice.
And if we want to learn more about you, we can go to what? Veronica Garcia Martinez?
Or Veronica for Illinois on Facebook. It's Veronica, the number 4, and IL. It's easier to find it. And for those of you that in the Spanish world, it's La Maestra Vero 81. You can find me on social media because that's how everybody knows me.
Okay.
And I'm out there, though. You will see me because I'm literally everywhere. I go to Corn Fest. You know, we worked it many years. I'm at the schools. We have Esperanza Latina. We launched that to help support the immigrant community. You will see me. I am there. Find me.
Well, we thank you for your time. You can't see her now, but you can hear her. And we thank you again. Veronica Garcia Martinez has been our guest here on TD Ryan Unleashed podcast number 22. TD Ryan Unleashed is brought to you by Scott Zyman, your State Farm insurance agent. Scott can help you save money bundling your home and auto insurance. Call 815-748-3101 or stop by at 2587 Sycamore Road, Suite D in DeKalb. Like a good neighbor, Scott Zyman and State Farm are there. Pizza Villa, pizza, pasta, sandwiches, and more at 824 West Lincoln Highway in DeKalb. For delivery or pickup, call 815-758-8116 or go to pizzavilla.com. My Insurance Guys in Sycamore, family owned, local, reliable. My Insurance Guys cover Medicare to auto and everything in between. Call us in Sycamore at 815-899-0950. My Insurance Guy, business, auto, home, life, and health at myinsuranceguy.com. And Elder Care Services of DeKalb County, safe, secure, and supported, helping you stay at home where you want to be. Call 815-758-6550 or stop in at 1701 East Lincoln Highway in DeKalb or on the web at ecsdecalb.org.